Zingo TV, channel 250. I'm Cassie Wiseman, and this is the Wiseman Report, the very first WMMA live show, a platform where we like to reveal stars who are often hidden in the shadows. Please remember to download both the Barn Burner and Zingo TV apps from the respective iOS and Android app stores. Yes, they are both free. So go ahead and download that, and please remember to rate and leave a comment. Now, Zingo TV can also be watched on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, and Fire TV sticks. And if you have Roku or Roku sticks, anything from 2016 and forward, you can also get it there. Now, tonight, I am super pumped. Not only am I here with my partner in crime, Steph, and yet another Wiseman Report, but we also have the great Emily Ducote here with us tonight, as you can see. We'll get into the situation that is her life right now in just a little bit. Stephanie Fleming is a three-time national champion and has fought for Canada twice, once in the 2017 and 2019 Waco World Championship. She is also a chief officiate for kickboxing and has coaching courses and experience in both kickboxing and boxing. And when she isn't doing all of that stuff, she is a registered massage therapist like myself, but she also has two kids. So Stephanie is very busy. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining me. How are you?
So excited to talk to Emily.
Now, our guest tonight, as I mentioned, is Emily. She has a record of 9-6 and is fighting on the November card with Invicta FC. She's going to be doing battle for the title against Ruiz, and we're going to get everything from her here tonight about her career, how she is now, the circumstances that she's training through, and her goals in the future. Emily, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Now, first, for all of those who don't know, because I wouldn't know if I wasn't having you on here, catch us up with what's going on in your life right now this week.
Yes. So Oklahoma City, or actually Oklahoma in general, had this weird, crazy ice storm early in the week. And it knocked out like 300,000 people's power. So OG&E has been working all week, but I think there's still large chunks still missing power. I'm one of them. So
wow.
It's been a little weird, but I mean, what hasn't been weird this year? So
True.
That's very true. It's so funny that now when anything happens, like anything at all, we're just like, it's 2020, man. Like,
yeah. Yes, it's true.
we're really just trying to ride whatever wave is coming at this point and trying to stay afloat. I said everyone is funny because when 2020 started, we're all like, yeah, new decade, new goals, blah, blah, blah. And now it's just survive. Just get through it.
I agree.
So, I mean, for those who don't know or who haven't been following your career or anything else like this here, let's go through really quickly your 3 fights that you've had with Invicta. Kind of want to build up to like where you're going to now, getting back into this title contention and really going for it this time. So
Sure.
I'm going to ask you a question about one, then Stephanie will ask, and we'll just go through it that way. So we'll kind of get like a recap of what's been going on. So me and Stephanie have talked about a few of them already and what we thought was a robbery. But anyways, we'll get into that in a second. So when we think about your very first fight, Morandin, is that how I pronounce it?
Yep, I think so.
So looking back at that, like you won that fight via KO, a very crazy KO. What did you learn about yourself after that fight?
That fight for me was really exciting because I've obviously watched Invicta for a long, long time. I'm a big researcher, I guess you could say. So I've watched every Invicta card, every Invicta fight. You know, I've known about them and I've watched them throughout my whole career, you know, even before signing with them. So I was really excited just to sign with them and get my debut going. And I'm, you know, obviously really happy with how that fight went and started my Invicta career pretty great.
Yeah.
So Yeah, it did with a bang, really. Now, did you see, like, when you were in your training camp and stuff like this here, did you see certain tendencies or things that kind of led you to thinking that she would move in that way to be able to get, to be able to connect in that fashion? You guys go through anything with your game plan?
Honestly, I mean, she's a striker.
Yep.
I knew that going in, and so I was just trying to be patient and kind of wait for my time to take it to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I don't consider myself just a grappler, but when you're going against a striker, why not take it to the ground? And I'm pretty strong on the ground, so that was my game plan. But I'm not so strict with game plan, so that was just my thought. I'm not a rusher, so I'm not going to rush in and rush the takedown. But I was kind of scoping it out, seeing how it was, and I was seeing some openings, and so I caught her striking before I could even take it to the ground. So, I mean, each fight is different. I feel like I can go anywhere. So, but for that particular fight, I was, in mind eventually gonna hit the ground.
Yep.
To work some grappling, but didn't end up going there, and I was able to land a good shot striking and get it finished in the first round, which was, is great. You don't want to always go the full fight. So I was able to get the finish and have a successful debut.
Yeah, and you certainly put a claim, kind of like making a mark right out of the gate. It was very, very impressive. Over to you, Stephanie.
Well, just to talk about your fight with Murado, myself, one of the judges, and lots of fans around the world didn't necessarily see it Murado's way. To me, it seemed like you got robbed during that fight. She was the favored fighter going in, but I'm sure, as you know, like anytime you leave it to the judges, it can go any way. What was your feeling about that fight? How did you feel coming out of it? I mean, just to see the look of surprise on her face when her hand was raised, I think spoke a lot to me, but just wondering how you felt about that.
I've got opinions about that fight, and it sucks, but that wasn't my first split decision loss. That wasn't my first close fight. Unfortunately, it does happen, and it's happened to me, and I do feel like that was a really close fight that I don't want to straight up just say robbery or I won or anything like that. I don't like to say that because it just happens. I'm not the only person that it's happened to, and it was a close fight, and it did go to the judges. So what I will say about that fight is how great I felt, and rewatching it, of course I rewatched it. I feel like I did a lot of great things. I showed a lot of aspects, I showed all aspects, not just one or two. So I felt really phenomenal coming out of that fight, and it's hard to feel so good about yourself and then have lost the decision. So it was a weird deal, and it took me a little bit to recover and just mentally, it's kind of frustrating when that happens. So it took me a little bit to get back on track, and then COVID hit. And so it was kind of like a longer break than I would have liked getting into the fight after that. But that's it, just how it is. And so I don't know what else to say about that.
One thing I loved about that fight is like you showcased that you really have great takedown defense in that. And so Murado is known for like her wrestling abilities. So I think like for your fight coming up with Ruiz, like, yeah, she's got great wrestling too, but is it as good as Murado? No, definitely not. And the fact that you showcased how good your takedown defense is with her, like I think should set a little bit of fear and No,
I agree. Kanako's wrestling was very strong, and especially coming from where she is. I'm not sure exactly where she's from, but I know that there's a strong wrestling, and just she herself was credentialed, and she it's just you could just look at her. She's a very strong person and a very strong wrestler, so very talented, very technical. So I knew that wrestling was going to be difficult, and I'm very proud of myself for the work that I put in for the defense. And I feel like I defended a lot of takedowns in that fight. So.
Yes, a lot.
Well, not only did you defend, but when she did get you down, you immediately went in for an armbar. So she was immediately forced into defense. Not very often was she able to get anything going when it came to the ground game. She was able to score in a couple of shots or a couple of points, but some of the takedowns. But realistically, she almost, I like when fighters are able to transition when it looks like they're going into a bad spot, because then it just makes the other person like, oh, shoot, like, I don't know. I thought I was going to have her on the ropes here, but I don't. I'm the one trying to defend against my arm being ripped off again. You went for that armbar so many times. You were so close so many times. So I'm actually surprised that she even continued to go for takedowns, because you were threatening every time you were taken to the mat.
Right. I agree.
She was kicking herself after the fight too. Like, she was quoted as saying, like, I underestimated Emily. She was a lot stronger than I expected. And I think like that definitely showed in that fight that she did underestimate your takedown ability or your takedown defense. So I think it's great that you had the chance to show everyone that you do have that capability, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think that happens a lot. You know, if you look at my record, it's not anything outstanding, but if you then look at who I fought, I mean, and like I said, that wasn't my first split decision. That was a close, questionable fight. So, you know, if they want to look at my record and judge me off that, you know, that's fine. I know that I have fought very high level people, and that's why you'll see it in my fights. I'm not an easy fight, and I'm not, you know, I don't have a padded record. That's what that is. My record is real. You know, I don't say no to fights.
I love that you said that, a padded record. You're right. I don't like records sometimes because they often show garbage. It's almost like when you say an experienced worker is better than this other person. Maybe not. Maybe their experience is just they've been lazy and just doing bar none type thing, just barely doing enough to get by. And so, yeah, they got 20 years experience or something in such and such a job, versus they haven't done anything realistically. They've just done enough to get by. And too often you see fighters, both on the female and male side, where they're just picky with these fights. And it's kind of set up for a win, or a little bit, not as much of a challenge as to just, you know what, I don't care what my record is. I want to challenge myself and get better. And yeah, you're just a pure fighter. And that's what shows, like, I think when it comes to fighters who evolve fast, it's because they don't do this padded garbage like you're talking about.
Yep, I agree.
So then we lead into your last fight. That was a tough one. That was a tough one. Lima, whoo, she is a slinger, right? Like, she is a savage. When she was in UFC, she was a straight up dog there too. Like, one of these will not quit. And when I saw that you were going up against her, I remember watching that fight and thinking, oh my goodness, I don't even know what's going to happen here. Like, I didn't think anyone would get finished. I kind of figured it would go to a decision because you're both, like, you're not going to quit, either one of you. So I was really, really interested in how it was going to go. How did you feel about her power?
Yeah, you know, that fight is so funny to me. She came out really strong in the first, and that's not something that was surprising to me. I knew she was going to do that. I've seen her do that in many fights. You know, like I said, I watch everybody's fight. So even before I knew I was fighting her, I've already seen all her fights. I've already seen her style. I know exactly who she is. But she did come out really kind of strong in the first, and she had that length on me. And so she was touching me up in the first a little bit. Just took me a little bit to see what was going on and adjust. And I feel like I came out in the second and the third and really had adjusted to what she was doing. So was it my greatest performance? No, but it didn't need to be. I got it done. I just needed to get back in the win column. And I actually, while it wasn't my greatest performance, I'm okay with it because I did a lot of things that I haven't done in a long time. If you've really watched my fights, you'll see, you know, how I show my skills is kind of flip-flop sometimes. And for fights, I adjust, and sometimes I'll do takedowns, or sometimes I won't, and sometimes I'll stand, and sometimes I'll work the ground. And in this fight, I showed skills that I haven't done in a while. So I was really pleased with myself. Like, I hadn't taken anybody down in how many fights, because just how the fights had played out, I just hadn't taken anybody down. So, you know, it was nice to get in there and to knock the rust off my wrestling, take her down, work a little ground. And kind of just let my striking go. She was throwing at me, so I threw back, and I, luckily figured it out and won the last 2 rounds. And I thought I landed some really good stuff and let my hands go and throw some nice combos. So that was an interesting fight. I think it's a funny fight because I know it wasn't my greatest and it wasn't outstanding, but pretty proud of adjusting. Not everyone can get hit like that in the first and kind of figure it out after that.
I don't know. I think basically you're a fighter, so of course you're gonna be hard on yourself. But I do like the fact that it almost like she came into the first, she was very aggressive, and she took that round. Not like it wasn't like a landslide, but she took the round because she had the edge on. She had her jab going early, and she did some damage with your lead leg and this kind of stuff in the beginning. But then when you came in the second and the third, the second, when you were able to come in and you went for the single and you swooped in low with your other leg to wrap up her other one to get that first takedown, you scored some ground and pound and stuff like that. It honestly seemed like you were just having fun. Like it just seemed like it didn't look like you were stressed. It didn't look like you were anxious or amped up or anything else. It just seemed like you were flowing. It was just
I
fun.
settled in.
You were just going in there to see how you were moving and just finding yourself. Like honestly, that's what it looked like from an outsider's perspective. It didn't look like I would have never looked at it and said, that's a crap performance by Emily. But it looked like you were flowing, like you were having a good time. You weren't. I find sometimes when fighters, especially in that first round, like you said, like if they get the tar beat off them in the first round, or if it's like kind of hard in the first round, then it's hard for them to kind of get caught up. But you just kind of went in there and kind of analytically looked at the situation from like a fun standpoint and just had a good time. And your cardio was very evident. Your cardio edge was very evident. And that I think it's almost like the unspoken superpower for MMA. It's like if you have cardio, chances are you can kind of whoop the other person depending on like how bad it's going. But like, yeah, your cardio was crazy for that fight. I think not only were you mixing things up, like no one knew what you were going to be doing in there. So all your fights are different. Anyone who goes through your footage, I saw 3 different fights when I look at your 3 Invicta fights that we've talked about. I saw 3 different Emilys. So I mean, someone coming in to fight you now, like Ruiz, if she goes to watch your fights, and you've changed since then, as every fighter does. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how she kind of prepares for whatever you're going to bring inside the cage.
Right.
Over to you, Seth.
So Emily, between COVID and power outages, it seems like not just for you, but a lot of fighters, there's constantly being barriers thrown this year. But like from watching all of your interviews and things, I heard that you trained at your boyfriend's gym and you were able to keep yourself going. And it seems like you're the type of person who takes one step at a time, one fight at a time, one opportunity at a time. With every fighter who has a strong psychological game, such as yourself, who is able to overcome those types of barriers, there's a support system behind them. So what I want to ask is, who is your support system, and who are the people that surround you, that fuel you to keep going, not just through COVID, not through power outages, but into big opportunities such as your next fight?
I've been with this coach and this team since my amateur debut. I had, I've been at other gyms, but I never fought since I was at this gym, American Top Team, Oklahoma City, with my coach. So, I mean, he's been with me since my amateur debut. So, I mean, that's just ridiculous, right? Like you don't see that very often. Sometimes people lose and they think that it's a result of their team, and they leave and they go around, they bounce around. And that's just not what I think. I think that, it's a more of a personal thing, less of a team thing. Obviously that's not the case for everybody, but for me, I have a great team here, a great coach. I have a great set of partners, and that's just my team. That's just how we do it. Every camp, same coaches, same partners. I've got some really great partners that, they're no names, but they're they're putting in the work and they're consistent, and that's what you need. You don't need to be, like I said, this is not for everybody. This is for me. I don't need to be at a big gym. I don't need to be with big name people. I need consistent people in my life that are going to do the work with me. And that's exactly what I have here. And that's why it's so great. And the cool thing also is I also have a little network around, the United States of training partners. So obviously with COVID, travel is hard. So for my Juliana fight, I did not get to go out as much, but this fight, and I got to train with my friend Sam Hughes. I got to train with Cheyenne down in Texas. I've trained with Claudia before in New Jersey. And so I have this really cool little network, and I train at my home base, and then I go out for a few days and I train with my friends, and, we get in some good, hard training, and then I come home, and that's just how I like it. I like it here. There's a lot of big gyms, and it's funny to say that I'm in Oklahoma, right? Because Oklahoma is just, everyone thinks is just a small little town and in Oklahoma, where there's nothing, but it's got everything I need. It's a city where there's a team that backs me since I've started the sport, and I've got the partners that I need to be consistent and to constantly improve. And so for me, as long as I'm improving, that's all I need. The growth and the change is what I need. If I'm at a standstill, then I'll reassess myself and see what else I need to add in. But this team is exactly what I need.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yep.
Now, because of, I'm going to jump in here for the last question here. So folks, because of the power outages and things there, we're not going to keep Emily very long. She's running on a generator as we speak. So because of that, let me ask you just one last question. On this show, the idea is to be able to shine a light on females who may not get the publicity and may not get the spotlight and may not get the props due or owed to them. And so that's something that Stephanie and myself are really fighting to try to balance and try to make this show that for them. And so when it comes to yourself and all of the things that you've learned through your slugfest and through your team and through your experience, if there was a female fighter out there or someone who wants to be a female fighter, what's a piece of advice or some advice you would give to them?
Find your stuff. You know what I mean? Like I was kind of saying, is everyone thinks you need to be at this big gym with all these big names, and that's just not the case. That's not what I think, you need to be successful. I don't think you need to do those things to achieve your goals. So like I said, I'm here and I'm at a small team that is not, it's not a fight team. There are fighters at the gym, but it's not a fight team. It's not like that. And I'm doing well for myself. And I just think that some people really underestimate, what they have. Like, use what you have and find a good team, find good people. And then you can do anything. You don't need to be, I've gone to those big gyms and I've trained there, and it's not everything, not everyone is going to fit in there. It's a very specific big teams want big names, and that's just the truth. And I don't think you need to be there. And that's just, I've said it over and over because I just really believe that anybody can be anywhere and do anything. And it's just, you got to have those people, got to have the right people that believe in you, and you got to have the right partners. Doesn't matter who they are, consistent, hard work, everything like that. And you can do it. I mean, you can do anything. You could get anywhere in the fight world, wherever you are. You don't need to be at what you think is the successful place or anything like that. Small, you can see it. You'll look around, you can see these fighters that are in small gyms all around doing really well for themselves. And that's just something that I like to see, because like you said, this is your show for kind of the people that don't get a lot of spotlight. That's kind of what I feel like. I feel like there's a lot of people out there that, are in small gyms and very talented. And it's hard to get, to break out and get where you want to be. But, I think you can do it, and you don't need to change or do anything crazy to get there.
No, I completely agree. I think there's so many powerful female fighters who very lucky that they've gotten the spotlight that they have gotten. And I'm very fortunate that, to be able to read about them, to watch them, to interview them and all of these things. But then there's a large unit of women, large numbers of women in all organizations that are not getting the props and like all the sacrifice that these ladies are making, working full-time jobs while still trying to train for MMA and do all these things, and then they're not getting the spotlight or anything, kind of marketing, anything. Like it's craziness. So yes, no, it's certainly something that Stephanie and myself are very, very passionate about, and something that her and I, our small group, we all put our heads down and try to make this a stage for women fighters like that. Yeah, that is the goal there. So thank you very much, Emily. Thank you for coming to us from your room with your one light. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it beyond words. I will be watching you, as will Steph, don't worry, and we will be covering every second of it. Obviously, we're nerds. But yes, thank you very much for coming on the show. I wish you all the best with the rest of your training and everything else. And we'll be reaching out to you after your fight. Can't wait to see what you bring inside the octagon this time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
And there we have it, folks. That is how it's done. Listen, I gotta say, I was nervous, Stephanie. I will tell you. I mean, when I learned yesterday that the girl has had no power for a week, folks. Okay, no power for the full week. So if she wanted to bounce, realistically, man, I understand. Like, you got no power for the week. You've had no hot showers. It's a lot going on, and you're training for a championship fight. But there's a woman of her word right there, and I greatly appreciate that. She had one lamp and a generator, and using her phone as a hotspot, folks. That's how she was there. So yeah, very, very grateful for that. Stephanie, what do you see happening here for her fight?
Oh, I think she's gonna win.
Why?
100%.
Why?
I just think she has it. Like I said, when it comes to so Ruiz, yeah, she has the wrestling. She has really good wrestling. But like I said, she doesn't have the kind of wrestling that Murata has. And Emily proved that she can deal with those wrestling skills. Her takedowns were amazing. She was looking sharp. Her cardio is on point. She's got her why. She's there psychologically. If you can get through COVID, if you can get through power outages, you're ready. She's got a strong training camp. She's got the right people around her. I just think she's got a lot to prove, and I think everything is in her favor for this fight.
Yeah, I think when I saw, well, and that's something, I could have gone on for hours just then, and I know you could too. But something, when I watched that fight against Lima, I watched that one a couple of times, and even the commentators were noting how when Emily was tagging Lima, that the expression on Lima's face and everything was different. It was like she was stunned for a second, like the power, and she was very crisp. And it seemed like the longer the fight went, the better she actually got. Like, she found her timing, and then she was cutting angles, and she was setting up her sharp right. She was putting on her, and like I said, she had a flow about her. It didn't seem like it was programmed or stiff, even though coming out of that first round, man, most fighters would have been stiff as anything. I'm slightly confused as to what to do. She was fluid that whole way through and just really got better the entire fight. And like I mentioned, just those 3 fights that we discussed alone, we saw 3 different sides of her.
Yes.
3 different versions of her. And I think that's rare. How often do we talk about fighters or watch fighters and you already know what they're bringing in there? They're either Muay Thai, and that's, they're going to stick to their Muay Thai game, or they're BJJ and they're going to try to drag you down to the ground and just try to submit you out, or you know what I mean? Which is fine. That's perfectly fine. Absolutely. If you find your niche, man, flow for it. But it's very hard to train for somebody when you just don't know which card they're going to be bringing into this game.
Well, she's not one-dimensional, but one thing that is consistent throughout her fights is she's the type of fighter that picks up steam as the rounds go on. It seems like each round, like she picks it up. She's a little bit more aggressive. She's a little bit sharper. She's a little bit faster. And I just don't think Ruiz is prepared for how strong she's going to be, how good her takedown defense is going to be. And I think Ruiz is like kind of like a shoot boxing style. And I think matched up against Emily's striking, I don't know. I got to give it to her for the striking.
Well, and something else that Emily does too is that she tends to dominate the center of the cage.
Yes.
She'll get in the center and she'll stay there. She is able to switch stances. And I know she was mixing up her kicks a little bit more against Lima too before she started setting up those takedowns. And you think about it, she mentioned that she had to shake off the rust of like her wrestling and that kind of a thing. And any fighter that gets confidence, they're kind of invincible, aren't they? Because they think and they know and they believe within themselves that they can do all these things. So especially after that Lima fight and the cardio and things, she's going to be hard to handle. Emily is like very hard for Ruiz. I don't know what Ruiz is doing for cardio on that kind of a thing, but realistically, I think that's going to be the main thing because Emily is certainly able to increase the pace and push that cardio.
Yes.
And we know her gas tank isn't going to die. So for Ruiz, regardless of if it's wrestling or what she's bringing to the game, she needs to really make sure that her cardio is in check. And that's hard, like, because who knows what the fighters are doing or their circumstances. Like we know Emily's right now because she told us, but anybody else in the world know that unless she told them? You know what I mean? It's like power outages, COVID, all these other things. Who knows what Ruiz is going through? And does she have the team beside her that Emily has?
Right.
That's rare,
Right.
So yeah, it's hard to know what a fighter's going through, not just with circumstances like here this year, lovely 2020, but also like what's your team, like what's going on, injuries or what else. But we know that Ruiz for sure needs to have her cardio. Whatever game plan she's bringing, she needs to have cardio for days to be able to go.
Not just that, but I think if Ruiz is heavy on her front foot, she goes for those takedowns a lot and she tries to use her wrestling. One thing that Emily does very well and she capitalized in multiple fights is using that back leg roundhouse kick to the thigh. If she chops down her leg, I mean, there's only so many kicks you can take before you get dead leg. She slows her down. She slows Ruiz down and Emily picks up steam like she always does. You're going to see like round 2, round 3 is Emily's game.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, for sure. No, I would agree with you on there. I think Emily, she just gets better as the rounds go on because it's almost like she studies you as she's fighting you. She's an extremely intelligent fighter. And something else that heard about her, and she kind of mentioned it just now in the interview, is she's studying footage constantly. Like, it doesn't even matter if she's going to fight you or if you're in her weight class even. She's constantly watching fights and studying and analyzing and watching her own fights and watching all these other fighters. Like, she's constantly studying. And so you get her inside the cage, she's still in study mode and she's able to change real quick. I think about Conor when he fought Mayweather. And Conor McGregor mentioned that Mayweather changed how he fought 3 or 4 different times within the same fight. Now, to be able to do that, that's craziness. But Emily is one of those fighters that can just change really quickly because she's studying you as she's fighting you.
Agreed.
Gonna be interesting. Can't wait to watch it.
Gonna be a good one.
I know. So I wish it wasn't November, honestly. But anyways, well, it's almost November anyways. I don't know where I am. But I'm still back in March, COVID. I don't know. I don't know, man. It's been rough. All right. So in the world of WMMA, and if some of you are noticing me looking to my right, it is because I have LFA live right now on my phone. That's literally what I am doing. I am waiting for the ladies to just fight. There is a title fight strawweight happening. Should be happening any given second here now. I wish they would just hurry it up. The anticipation is driving me crazy. But anyways, if it comes on there, I'll be telling you. So while I'm waiting for all that to happen, let's talk about one championship that also went down today. We had a strawweight title defense. We had Zhang versus Tao. Now, Jiang, she is on her 4th title defense. She has fought Tao before, but it was a few years ago. What do you think, Stephanie?
Well, the first time that Young, I think that's how you say her name,
We're gonna go with that.
fought her, she closed the distance really well. She just peppered that right eye. And I mean, Tiffany Tiao's face at the end of it told the whole story of the fight.
Yeah.
Her face was obliterated. It also told the story of how much heart she has too, to see her, because she really did. She got picked apart that entire fight. To see her continue, she just wasn't going to give it to her easy. You know, she has a lot of heart. She's a good fighter herself, but it was just Yang had the skill.
Yeah.
She had the striking ability. So she looked fresh in every round. She had cardio. Speaking of, you were talking earlier about how in WMMA, having cardio can be the difference between winning and losing. Well, she had the cardio for sure. One thing I hope that Tiao fixed is that she always drops her backhand. When she's going for takedowns or when she's doing a kick, she opens up her hands.
Yeah.
And that I think Yang capitalized on a lot during that fight. Yeah. So I honestly don't see it playing out any differently, except for the fact that maybe it'll be slightly closer, but I still think it's going to go in Young's favor.
Okay, so I'm glad you watched the previous fight because I watched today's.
It's a good one.
I watched today's. So
Ooh.
yes, I've already seen it. I've been there. I had WMMA all over the place today. Okay, like I had a tablet set up over here, the computer is here, the phone is here, and I had my pen and paper. I was going nuts. That's been my day. It's a lot of copy, folks.
This is your passion for it, though.
I know. I've been loving it the whole day. So today, they went the 5 rounds. They did go the distance. Tao had her moments. I will say she picked up a lot. She grew a lot in the past. I think it's 3 years since they fought. There were certain rounds she ended very well, and she connected with kicks and things like head kicks and certain combinations that she put together. And it's very funny because every time she did, Jiang, she looked at Tao and had a smirk on her face as if to acknowledge, oh, it got me, right? Like, it's kind of like, oh, I didn't know I could get hit. Like, it was quite funny. It wasn't like in an insulting way, obviously, or anything else, but it's kind of like she was surprised because she doesn't get hit much. But anyways, both these ladies put on like a solid fight. I mean, Zhang still took the fight. It was via decision, but and both fighters were wearing the war. Realistically, Zhang has the speed, and her combinations were fierce, man. And how she was mixing things up and stuff like that. I mean, Tao was going for takedowns and things, but she didn't have the timing set up. And I think like a little bit more practice or prep with how she's setting that up or something else, like something was disconnected there. But she was way better this time than she was last time. So, and that heart, I mean, come on, you can't train heart. You cannot train heart. If you don't have it, get out of the game, folks, right? Like, I mean, that fighter's heart, that I won't quit. You're beating the crap out of me and I know it, but I don't care. I'm not going anywhere. Like it's very, you got to have that as a fighter. Like you cannot be a serious high level fighter and go in there with the best of the best and not have that. And Tao has that in spades, man, in spades. And you could see like she grew a lot since last fight. And we have Zhang over here. And I mean, her 4th or 5th title defense, girl's on a different level. So the fact that you even went the distance with her, that's close to a win, man. You're doing something right. Your trajectory is going well. You are doing well.
Well, sometimes you learn more from a loss than you do from a win. And the fact that she improved and got better, that is a win. It might not be, on the scorecards, but if she was able to improve, and she continues to fight high level fighters and continues to get better and better, who knows where her career will go, Well,
and also too, this was Tao's first time being in a 5th round ever in her career. So Steph, like, this yourself, like anytime the amount of rounds change. If you've never been in a fifth round, you don't know how to gauge your cardio or your output for that. Yep. Because I can't remember the fighter we were talking about. I can't remember. Anyways, but she has Andrade. Andrade has been fighting in 5-round fights for a long time. Suddenly she's fighting 3-round fights. Like that's, so you're used to trying to gauge your cardio, your power output and all this serious stuff for 5 rounds. And now what's 3 look like? What do you do? Right. So that's very crazy. And now this was Tao's first time ever in her career being in a 5th round. And who is she in the 5th round with? Oh, no one but the champion, so it's like you're not in the 5th round with nobody. It is the best in the division for the past 4 or 5 defenses now. So, she's used to 5 rounds. You are not. It's very, very hard to be able to do anything like that. And especially Young with her output, man, her output is crazy. She's constantly firing, constantly. Mm-hmm. So you don't even have a second to think about what's really going down here.
She almost uses her offense as defense, Yep.
Very, very true. But yeah, it was a good fight. I think if anything, Tao can go back to I'm sure as any fighter, any competitor is, you're down in the dumps after a loss, especially that this is your second time fighting the girl and you lost again. That's a hard one to swallow, but also you do have to have a reality check with yourself. Yes, it's true you lost. That's true. However, you did go into a 5th round for the very first time. Now that's learning. And I think that's important. I'm not about this all optimistic, all pessimistic. I'm a realist. So the realistic factor is she dragged her into the 5th round. It was a decision. It's not like, she schooled you, knocked you out, and you weren't even deserving to be in there. Mm-hmm. She's a dominant champion, but you got to up that output, like you got to be, or do something, chop those legs up, something to be able to slow her down, because her output is fierce. And as you mentioned, her offense is really her defense. It's crazy what she's able to do in there.
Definitely.
So that was that. Now, tonight, folks, it's still not on. I honestly didn't think this was even a big card. It's driving me nuts. So, realistically, tonight, now we've already predicted this anyway, Steph. We talked about the championship fight is going to be from, Lupita Godinez versus, and listen, folks, I'm sorry with the pronunciation on this name. I am sorry. But Demopoulos? We sound ridiculous. But we sound ridiculous. I am very sorry.
It is Demopoulos.
I'm sorry if it's wrong, but that's my attempt. Okay, so with this here, honestly, I think Godinez is going to take this one here. I think she's going to be the new champ when it comes to how I've been looking at how she's training, her flow. I'm very big in on how a fighter moves going into this thing, like fight week. Okay, so you think about it. They're cutting weight. They're doing all this garbage. They've already trained their butts off, and then they're cutting weight. They're doing all this stuff. Oftentimes, fighters are stiff, very, very stiff. And you can tell how they walk, how stiff they are. You can't be going in there all stiff and be pulling off half of the stuff that you were pulling off at the beginning of training camp. If you can, or you'll get injured quickly. You know what I mean? And when I look at Godinez and how she's moving, her energy and everything else, how she's been practicing and everything, I think this is going to be her night. Go ahead.
Isn't she on a 6-fight win streak right now?
Yeah.
She's also Canadian.
You
gotta like her a little bit more because she's Canadian.
Obviously. I'm trying not to be biased here, folks, but you know, we love our peoples. Yes. But when it comes to like, yeah, I was like, we've talked about this before, Steph, when it comes to fighters
Yeah.
who go on these win streaks.
Yeah.
And versus like fighting is hard, people. Like, as Steph knows, like people will just come out of nowhere, and just because they may not have found their flow before, and then tonight they are fighting you, and yay, they found their flow. Not good, right? So it's like you're in for a situation that you didn't even think was going to be happening. Suddenly, this person found all of their chi, and they're just coming at you with everything, and like, whoa, I didn't see that in the tapes that I watched. Where'd that come from? But like, when you got a win streak going, Steph, talk to us about it from your experience. When it comes to you're winning and you go into a situation where you're coming off some wins.
I think it's just a high that you can't recreate in any other way. It builds your confidence. It keeps you in the right mind frame. And yes, every fighter has their ways of making themselves psychologically strong, and has their ways of dealing with losses and coming back from losses. But still, it's always a little bit of an advantage when you're on that win streak. And if you look at some of the interviews and stuff with Vanessa, she boasts and talks about how she's the more experienced fighter. She's been fighting for 8 years. She's had Loopy reach out to her like via Instagram, and she's like bragging, like she's saying, I'm so good. And so yeah, she does have that confidence as well. She thinks, like, she looks at it like Loopy is the underdog, you know. But I think, I don't know, I don't necessarily agree after watching the footage of both fighters.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of their fights and stuff like that, and I just feel like skill sets make fights. It's just the way it is.
Yep.
And yes, of course, it's true. You can have a fighter that has all the skills but has an off night. Absolutely, that happens all the time. And it's the fight game, so anything can happen at any given point. Absolutely. However, with all of that said, when we look at how Loopy goes into situations and how she fights and her versatility and all of this, yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like in this situation, look, and it's exactly what I said to Emily just now. And she talked about padding the records. And this is, I'm not saying Vanessa did this, but I'm saying sometimes experience tells a story. Sometimes it doesn't, right? And sometimes you'll look at someone who has all these fights and you're like, oh my goodness, like this fighter has all this experience. But then you look at who they fight, you're like, I don't even know any of these people, right? And also, how did they win the fights? Like it's something else. Like, was it currently the situation happening now with John Jones, Khabib, over pound for pound? Isn't that pathetic? Like, boys, stop stroking. And so it's like John Jones is having a minor tantrum because he feels that he should get pound for pound because he's defended 14 times Summit this year, 14, 15 times to Khabib's 4. Is what he was trying to say. Now, this is what I mean. You look at his title defenses, John Jones. Questionably, some of those victories in his favor, a lot of people thought the other people, his opponents, won. It's happened a couple of times. We look at his drug tests. We look at his arrests. We look at his PEDs. We look at, there's a lot going on there. So when you look at his fights, his championships, his everything, unfortunately, it's kind of scarred because of these other things. Then you look at Khabib. Not only did he win, but look how he won. He completely manhandled anybody in his path 29 times. So the same is true with this here.
And he's a class act.
Absolutely. In and out of the cage. We look at Vanessa here. She may have more experience. That doesn't mean everything. Sometimes it does, but don't count it on that alone, is what we're saying.
Definitely.
And in this situation, I feel like it's not what we need to look at. Loopy, I feel, has the versatility and skills to definitely be able to take this home.
Not just that, she also talking about footage and how, and Emily was talking about footage tonight too. That's a reoccurring thing, and how you're learning from footage. Vanessa fought only a month ago on the Contender series. So right now, Loopy has fresh footage of what she's going to be like. You don't change much in a month. Let's be realistic.
Yep.
So she has that to go from as well. So, I mean, whereas Loopy fought 3 years ago, so she's a different person now than she, you know what I mean? Like, she hasn't had any real big fights since then.
Only time will tell. But somehow we're down to 2 minutes. Where'd that go again? Steph, I don't even know. I don't even know. As the producer puts the times up, I'm like, why? Why did that happen? Anyways, folks, okay, you can hit me and Steph up on the Wiseman Report. We are now on Instagram. We are now on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're everywhere, folks. So if you have any questions, comments, whatever, just hit us up on any of the social medias, the Wiseman Report. You will find us, and we will be happy to get guest suggestions, comments, whatever. We are there. Please remember, this can also be heard on the Barn Burner Radio Network and on its 122 platforms. The H.E.R Network is part of the Barn Burner Network, Inc. Okay, so please check out barnburner.ca for all the news and programming of the Wiseman Report. Barn Burner, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. This is Cassie Wiseman and my girl, Steph. Good night, folks. Thanks, everyone, for stepping in and for watching here tonight.